order the first meeting of the Board of Adjustment. Today's date is August 12th, 2026. Can we take roll call, please?
Absolutely. Chair Egley.
Here.
Vice Chair Peterson. Here. Commissioner Baumer. Commissioner Hatch. Commissioner Parr. And Commissioner Trujillo.
Here.
Thank you. That concludes roll call.
Jenna, do you still want us to move forward with the Pledge of Allegiance? Since we've already done that with the Planning Commission. What do you find appropriate at this point? What's everybody else find appropriate?
Okay, thank you. I didn't want to be the person to say no.
I think we're all still living that pledge, so we're good. We have one hearing item tonight, a request to appeal the planning director's use classification determination 309 Woodworth Street. And Jenna will be making that presentation for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commission. My name is Jenna Gorney, Senior Planner in the Planning Department. This evening, we're considering a case of an appeal requesting a reversal of the Planning Director's determination of the proposed use being classified as light manufacturing, which is not identified as a permitted use in the downtown zoning district, DB zone district. Based on the staff report and exhibits provided in the recommendation, recommendation would be from staff that the board uphold the director's administrative determination. Land Development Code Section 18.01 540A, Appeals of Administrative Decision and Interpretation, provides that the scope of the board's review this evening isn't necessarily to determine whether the director's determination was accurate or if they agree with that, but instead that the determination is in deciding whether that determination was arbitrary, capricious, or not in accordance with the intent and requirement of Title 18. Pursuant, of course, to Land Development Code, public notices were completed and we have received affidavits of the same. The subject property, and my next slide is a map. The subject property is located at 309 Woodworth Street on the northwest corner of Woodworth Street and 3rd Street in Monument, Colorado. The property is 0.35 acres and is legally described as Lot 1 Flynn replat. This evening's applicant is Robert Flynn, and he's the legal owner of the property. The town's zoning map identifies the subject property as mentioned as downtown business, DB. The surrounding zoning includes single-family detached to the west and the north, commercial central to the south and the east, and a narrow public space parcel known as Lavalette Park located to the immediate east. Surrounding uses include a multifamily to the north, Aspen Auto Clinic to the south, Park Space and Air Academy Credit Union to the east, and Stellar Style Salon and Spa to the southeast, as well as single-family detached residential uses to the west. The primary driveway access to the property exists from Woodworth Street, and you can see here is an image of where that property exists. And we have secondary access via Vista Montana Lane at the rear of the property. The existing use of the subject property is a detached single-family dwelling with a detached garage at the rear of the lot. A prior special use review was approved by the property in March 1st of 2021 by the Board of Trustees. That approval was specific to the use of the detached garage as a seasonal snack bar or ice cream shop, and included consideration of parking and access concerns on that rear access Vista Montana Lane. The current appeal is not related at all to that prior appeal or prior approval. The current case commenced on February 15th, 2026, when the applicant submitted a permit request for a detached accessory structure. After several conversations with staff to clarify the use and details of the project, the applicant updated the permit on February 26 to reflect a commercial alteration permit for a principal commercial use and added dimensions for the proposed structure. Following several months of communication with the applicant, including written correspondence, meetings, and phone calls, the commercial alteration permit was denied on April 13, 2026, based on the director's determination regarding the land use classification of the proposed operations in the proposed structure. As permitted by code section 1801-530A, the applicant filed an appeal on May 12th, no less than 30 days following that determination. The commercial alteration permit materials that were reviewed included elevation drawings for a 2,600 square foot warehouse building. It was warehouse style with bay doors for delivery via the alley and employee operations. The applicant did describe that there would be no retail sales. There would be no public access and no outdoor storage associated with the operations. This slide shows the plot plan that was submitted. It identifies the proposed location of the new structure to be located at the rear of the existing residence. The application materials also included a cover letter and company overview. The company overview, included as Exhibit M, describes the business scope of work to include the design, manufacture, and deployment of advanced monitoring and data acquisition systems for the railway industry. This slide shows a sample of the product that was provided by the applicant. Based on the applicant's description of the proposed operations together with the accompanying materials, the director determined the proposed use is most consistent with the Land Development Code definition of light manufacturing. Per Monument Land Development Code Section 1807 definitions, light manufacturing means the assembly, fabrication, or processing of goods and materials using processes that don't ordinarily create noise, smoke, fumes, glare, or health or safety hazards outside of the building or lot where such activities are occurring, and where the area occupied by outdoor storage, goods or materials does not exceed 25% of the lot, of the buildings on the lot. The subject property, as mentioned, is located in the downtown zoning district, and per the Land Development Code Section 1803.325, this section defines that the intent of the DB zoning district is to provide for and encouraging development and redevelopment that preserves and enhances the unique character of downtown Monument. Subsection B identifies that all uses in this district are permitted as shown in the Schedule of Standard Zoning District Uses found in section 1803.380. While the schedule does provide for a mix of commercial and residential uses that can be provided on one lot, the light manufacturing use is not a use that's permitted in the zone district. The applicant asserts that the proposed use is more appropriately classified as equipment, sales, and service, light. Per Monument Land Development Code 1807 definitions, equipment sales and service light means a facility that's engaged in sales, repair, or rental of light equipment, including but not limited to appliances, gardening tools, sewing machines, vacuum cleaners, and other products customarily associated with domestic residential uses. The applicant contends that the phrase that including but not limited to is broad enough to include the proposed product and operations within that use of equipment, sales, and service light category. The director's determination was based on the operational descriptions submitted by the applicant, including the self-described design and manufacture of equipment, rather than sales, repair, or rental of light equipment customarily associated with domestic residential use. Additionally, the department's interpretation of the phrase including but not limited to is that the enumerated list establishes a class of household and residential use equipment. The department interprets the phrase including but not limited to as allowing additional items of the same general type rather than expanding the use to encompass other unrelated categories of equipment. In considering the applicant's request, several additional options were evaluated as potential paths forward. We evaluated a possible rezoning of the property. The Land Development Code Section 1803.380 principal uses defines that a mix of residential and commercial uses could be sited on the same lot. Excuse me. pardon me, I lost my space. Per the rezoning, light manufacturing is allowed in the light manufacturing or light industrial zoning district by rights and in business campus by conditional use permit. So staff would not ultimately support a rezoning to light industrial that would allow this use or business commercial, business campus, because neither permits the existing single family dwelling use. So rezoning would ultimately make the existing use incompatible and non-conforming, and that would not receive a recommendation of approval. The other option that was discussed was a potential text amendment that could be brought forward. It can sometimes be an option in municipalities. However, our land development code and application schedule doesn't allow for the bring forth of a text amendment other than that by planning commission or as directed by town council. So that would not be a path forward. In considering all details brought forward this presentation, again, in evaluating the scope of the review and determination this evening, ultimately the scope of that determination is whether the decision of the director to evaluate that use and classify it as such, whether that use is, or that whether that determination was arbitrary, capricious, or not in line with Title 18 requirements. So required action this evening concludes that the board shall determine if the director's determination was arbitrary or capricious, and then affirm the administrative decision or reverse the decision. So in conclusion, I included 2 suggested motions following your discussion for whichever way you would like to go. And that does conclude my presentation. And again, I'm also available for questions. Of course.
Is the owner, Robert Flynn, available? And would you like to speak to this?
Yes, I will.
Please.
So there's a couple things. Obviously, the description of our company did mention manufacturing. There would be no manufacturing at this location. We have multiple locations. We have 2 offices in Colorado Springs. This would be having an office local for me so that I could work out of it. It would be for sales and service of the monitors, which I did bring one. They're just a little small box. I'll bring it up, but there's no fab, no assembly, no processing. We basically do software upgrades and swap SIM cards, and it would be a place for me to, take calls, have meetings with customers and that type of thing. But let me grab the box. It's got some components in it. I mean, this is this typical tool we use to work on it. So it's not like there's a lot to it. It's not any different than a toaster or something similar, which is all the things that are on the approved list. So I think that was what the confusion was, is obviously, yes, we do that. We do a lot of other manufacturing. We do tanks and stuff for the railroad, but those are done at our facility in Colorado Springs, which requires an outdoor space. There's no outdoor access asked for at this location. It's just an office, again, for me to do work, for me to meet with people, and for me to do some sales and service on these devices.
This is a public hearing item, is it not? Go ahead and open it up for comments from the public. Anyone in the room would like to make a comment, please come on up to the podium and state your name and sign in. Seeing no one in the room, do we have anyone online, Ray?
There is no one online.
Close the public hearing portion and move on to questions or comments from the commission. Commissioner Trujillo.
Yes, sir. Got a couple of questions for you, sir. You knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
Will any monitoring systems or components be manufactured, assembled, fabricated, soldered, programmed, tested, or packaged at the 890 Woodmore?
No, it's just software servicing.
So in software servicing, are any of those components manufactured, assembled, manufactured, soldered, programmed? Is that a portion of it?
A cable is connected to them and we run a program on a computer. So I guess in that terms, yes.
Okay. No, and that's, again, just trying to define terms here.
Yep.
What percentage of activity at this property will be retail sales or repaired rental versus design, assembly, fabrication, testing, and deployment?
So probably service test within 30 max a month typically.
What percentage
So-
would you say?
Percentage of time would probably be 15,
Okay.
10, 15% of the time.
And the other 70%, let's say it's 30. The other 70% of the time, how would the business be at that location specifically be used?
So it'd be an office for me to make calls, to do my standard work that I go down to the Springs right now to do. So
Got it.
it would be, we run a website that looks at these things, so it's maintaining that stuff. There is software design work, coding, which
Okay.
is done by me and sometimes by other people, but mostly by me.
Okay,
And that would be, done there too.
perfect. Next one, will customers routinely come to the location to purchase or rent equipment? If so, what equipment and how often?
It's those monitors. And honestly, we work with the railroads. They're not even local. I think I've had them visit twice in the last 3 years.
Okay.
So
Would
very
that be
minute.
in a suburban vehicle? Would it be
Yes.
in a
It
truck?
would be in a suburban vehicle.
Got it. Okay. Next one, what does the company's submitted description use the word manufacture? If manufacturing or assembly will not be used at this location.
So we do manufacture things. We manufacture testing systems and testing harnesses for the railroad. And those are designed when the railroad tells us we need a job, but that's all done in the Springs location where we have access to rail. We have outdoor locations. We have a yard down there so that we can do the design and assembly down there. So that's not, and these are larger systems. These are tanks the size of probably a couple of your seats. Like they're very large.
Okay. And then last one, question wise, what specific language in the land development code supports classifying railway monitoring data acquisition systems as equipment sales and service light rather than light manufacturing?
So let me hang on.
Okay.
So it was equipment. Said equipment, including but not limited to domestic products. So I guess it was small appliance is what it read to me.
Sure.
And so that's where, those are a small appliance. I know they're not residential products, but it also does say including but not limited to domestic residential products.
Okay. No, and that's really my only questions I had. I guess my decision is limited on the use classification. The use classification appeal before us based on the applicant's own description of designing and manufacturing monitoring systems that is applicable to the code description. So
Right.
we're mixing terms here.
Right.
You're saying it is manufacturing, but it's not manufactured here.
No, yeah, well, I'm saying we do manufacturing, but they're totally different systems that we manufacture.
Sure.
These boxes we buy pre-built.
Okay.
They are sent out into the field locations to where my team goes out and services them, and they install them and service them. Now, if they fail or they need a software upgrade, they're returned. If they are junk boxes, they're disposed of, which are taken down to the Springs and disposed of in recycling.
Okay.
If they're not, they're reprogrammed and sent back out.
And I completely understand,
Yeah.
but I think it's the terminology of how it was actually drafted.
Right.
As it sets, I've got my opinion on how it's worded, but that's really my questions right now. I'll defer it back to the board now.
Thank you. Commissioner Peterson.
So are there deliveries in and out of
There's
just
minor deliveries. Yes.
delivery of malfunction
Yes.
product?
Yes.
And is that the size of deliveries, that a handful of them? Is it 100 of them?
It's usually 30 in a month is a typical return rate that we see
That
on those.
costs via trailer.
It comes by FedEx package.
So it's.
Yeah, you saw the size of them. I usually get a box of a couple and a couple times a month.
So it's 30 throughout the month that it's just
Yes. Yes.
stuff. What's going on. And the only operations out of the location are repair and reprogramming.
Mhm.
Limited to repair and reprogramming.
And for the most part, the repair is putting a new SIM card in. If we switch SIM vendors or something like that, it's simple
Sounds good. Thank you. So as far as, future plans, is there future endeavors outside of,
Not,
Okay.
there would be anything larger than what we're doing there. I didn't know how to structure the thing, but the goal was for me to have an office close to my house, right? And use my space on that land, which is undeveloped and it's a dirt lot right now. So it was to put a building back there, have it be an office, have it place where I can go and work and not have to drive to Colorado Springs. And what we do with those boxes is very minimal. Hopefully we could get bigger, but we've been doing the same amount of systems now for 20 years. So it's not like we've grown in any significant amount. So
and then as far as employees,
I have 3 guys that go out in the field and do the installs. They're typically out 20 days and then they're out 3 weeks and off a week. So, and they would maybe bring in some or maybe pick up some, but it would be 2 visits a month type of thing. And then I have some people that work with me to do the website side of things, but they're not full-time employees. They're just part-time employees.
they or work.
Yeah, they're remote workers. So I'd plan to have a conference room in there and it'd be a place for me to work with them if they came in and we had stuff to discuss.
Good. So the size of the building, is the purpose of, there's planned, looks like a decent size, facility,
Mhm.
large garage doors.
Right.
Is there?
There's a couple things. We don't have a garage on that property, so my wife wanted a place to put her car. That's part of why I put in that. And then also potential expansion. The initial design was going to be an office for me and then a conference room. And then potentially expanding if we ever end up with other people, but mostly just to put a car or 2 inside because we don't have a garage on that property.
And then when you say future expansion, it's really, having enough room if.
Yes.
More than 30 a month.
And probably more that I would deal with if I had to have people help me out with the website and maybe potentially have another software guy that his job was to manage the website or monitor the website.
Questions for staff. With our current comp plan that we're working on and downtown vision in the future, how does this coincide or not coincide with what we're currently working on?
The future land use map would still designate this location in the downtown business zoning district. So that would ultimately depend on the use that the director has determined that this is, being light industrial. And having a light industrial operation in downtown business zoning district, it doesn't coordinate. And it may be helpful to consider as you're asking some questions about the application of materials. That's why I wanted to highlight the scope this evening of the determination, and the scope not being necessarily or not being an evaluation of an agreeance of the director's determination. It is only to determine if the director's determination was arbitrary and capricious, which is why our presentation laid out our rationale and our alternatives that we had evaluated. And staff had evaluated the application based on applicants' submittal materials, identifying that there would be no sales and service, that it was manufacture, in their words, and the evaluation of the proposed structure would insinuate that the large bay doors would facilitate some more heavy deliveries and that there would be employee activities. So that is why our presentation was laid out as such, because the decision this evening isn't whether we agree with the director's determination or was it arbitrary in that decision. Thank you.
Commissioner Park. Be the only employee.
For the most part, yes. this was that's the whole thing that bothers me about all this is it's a semantics and wording issue. And I came up with an idea and tried to show a design, and then I didn't get a good direction on anything. So if garage doors are not something that we want on there, I'll put a garage door. If I don't want full height garage doors, I'll put a half height garage door. I, I just wanted to have something close to me. I bought in the town specifically because I wanted to be in the town. I bought that land because it had downtown business ability for me to both be a business and be a residence on the property. If it just needs to be an office, I have another company and I'll set it up as an office for the other company. I just need an office to work in. I don't care. It was one of the initial discussions that we had that I even said that there's no yard. I'm not planning to store a bunch of equipment on it. I mean, I'm right on the parade route. I got a nice lot that looks like crap because I can't do anything with it. And I plan to spend a lot of money on landscaping to make it look nice from the street. But I need to have something on the property, and I'm not allowed to have an ADU because I've already got that little garage. So I have too much percentage of my lot to be the ADU. So it's just a matter of trying to find something that worked. And it's all seems like it's wording, and it's like I say something wrong one time and I'm held to that. And I know my company does manufacturing. I've said that my company does manufacturing. I'm not denying that, but that's not what I'm using the facility, that location for. I want an office. I want an office building, and an office is an acceptable use of a downtown business. And so this light equipment sales and service looked like the next best thing to say. So that's why I picked that. That's why I went in that direction. And I just feel like I'm being pigeonholed into being something I'm not, which I'm just trying to be in the town.
Yes, I have a question for staff. Could this have been presented differently? Just want to build an office.
Sure, that's a great question. So in the several months in discussing this request with the applicant, staff and the director had walked through and vetted 5 use options that this proposed use could maybe be finagled into. We evaluated home occupation, live work dwelling, office, business, or professional, contractors, shop or storage yard, and equipment sales and service light. We had vetted through each of those uses and evaluated and vetted alternative application types. For example, the rezoning and or text amendment option. So as a department, we fully vetted as many options as we could, and we found that this particular use is just evaluated and classified as determined.
Yeah. Historically, that's a apples meat.
Yeah.
Historically, what businesses have.
Are you asking what have been in that establishment or what is in the surrounding area?
Designated.
So the zoning district would just allow for any additional uses. I'm not familiar with any previous commercial use on the property. I did find in the property's history that previous special use permit that was reviewed and approved that was specific to that use requested of an ice cream parlor type of item. Other than that, I'm only familiar with the existing residence, which would be permitted on the property and currently is under its existing zoning. Downtown Business Zoning District does allow for siting on the lot of both commercial and residential, but the commercial has to fit within that schedule of land uses. And this particular land use is just not one that's permitted in that area. So if we were to be looking at the zoning chart, we could go down that category of downtown business, and any of those uses that would be listed as A is allowed, those commercial uses could be cited in this property. I'm not familiar with anything beyond the previous ice cream item that was approved as commercial in this location.
Just to add a little bit more context to Jenna's point, as far as the zoning is concerned, a lot of what is currently downtown business zoning in the town of Monument was originally in historically residential zoning. The town underwent a zoning change in our comprehensive, or in our municipal code. I think it was 2017 or somewhere in the 2010s era, before this planning department was established, before anyone was here. And so I can't point to the exact moment in time when all of those residents became downtown business zoned. But a majority of the downtown area is grandfathered residentials, where our zoning is now downtown business, but was historically residential.
So I'd like to add something on that. I bought it as commercial property. So I bought it as commercial property and requested that special use permit to live on that property. It was zoned downtown business when I bought that house.
Yeah. Well, is it ever considered to designate it as a personal service establishment? And if so, then what was the criteria that it did not meet?
When you say personal service,
Receives goods from or returns goods to a customer which have been treated or processed at that location. And if something like that was considered.
it would likely not be considered based on the information provided by the applicant and their cover letter provided in the application that described the assembly, manufacture, and distribution of railway materials. We probably wouldn't even looked at that. Typically, not looking at the definition exactly, but per your description, those are personal sales and service is going to be like hairstylist or lawyer, those kind of things. This wouldn't have fallen in that category, which is why we evaluated those 5 that I had mentioned.
Did have a question. Please forgive me. I'm trying to wrap my brain around this because your application did mention manufacturing. Your application did mention the building. They have to act on that. You can't take it back. But what I'd like to know is, give me a second.
You're good.
So do you do any sales at this?
Yes, I would sell the equipment. Yes.
Do you write the sales through Colorado Springs or Monument?
Right now I run the sales through Colorado Springs because
Okay, so-
technically I don't do anything out of the location other than work from home like
Work from
everybody
home.
else.
I understand. Okay, that's all I had. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
Staff's information taken in was that there would be no retail sales and service. The application was presented that way to staff.
Not sure I have any questions for you, Mr. Flynn, yet. I feel like really the question before us is really the question of the planning director's decision, not necessarily how we view the application as presented to the planning department. And with that in mind, should we uphold the planning director's decision, what recourse then does the applicant have in the future to come back to reapply under different circumstances?
The applicant would want to reapply for a use that's listed as permitted within the schedule of permitted zoning uses in that zoning district. And it may be that this particular use is not permitted in that location. That's a possibility and evident today or from our determination.
Sure.
Completely understand what you just stated. The question is not whether the business is desirable or low impact. The question is whether the planning director's use classification was arbitrary, conspicuous, or contrary to Title 18, correct?
That's correct. If the determination was made without any thought, without any evaluation, and if it was arbitrary.
clearly there was a lot of thought to this as far as it was written. I think, and I'm going to tie on to what the chair is mentioning. What recourse at this time does the applicant have to make this correct in order for him to utilize that as a office space as determined by him, as a area that he can utilize? What would you recommend in order for him to readdress this going forward?
I would recommend him reapproaching the planning department and workshopping a new use that would fall into that category. I don't think that that would be within our scope this evening because we don't have that information. We would take in the information of the new application and proposal and see where that use falls on the schedule of permitted uses for that zoning district. So the information that we have at this time was the application as presented. I wouldn't want to presume what would work. I mean, again, this was months of back and forth with the applicants, emails, trying to vet through options. So I wouldn't want to propose an immediate solution right now as we would have had that during those conversations.
Um, Thank you, sir. All right, before we entertain a motion, any further discussion among the commission? Again, I think we need to, my opinion, we need to just kind of boil it down to the actual question of whether or not the planning director's decision was arbitrary, capricious, or not in accordance with the intent and requirements of Title 18. That's really the question before us tonight, not whether or not we like the business venture, anything else that goes with it. But that's really the question before us. But if you disagree with that, I'm certainly open to listening to that.
I guess the applicant's materials, the applicant material described operations as design, manufacture, and deployment of advanced monitoring and data acquisition systems for the railway systems or industry. Immediately identifies with manufacturing. So that there is the conflict in wording. Again, it's semantics. I get it. I understand, Mr. Flynn, exactly what you're saying. Staff classified the use of light manufacturing. It's not intended to permit. It's not intended as a permitted use in downtown business. No question. The applicant argues, obviously, the same use instead of equipment sales and services as light, but the definition centers on sales, repairs, rental, light equipment, customarily associated with domestic residential use. How it was presented, I can clearly see why the director, the planning director, and the planning staff looks at it from that perspective. I would ask the staff to look at this. How can we best make this equitable for the applicant to ensure this goes forward to meet those requirements for him to run his business? It's clearly, he's articulated that there is a function of that location in his business, but it's not necessarily the restrictions or the as labored towards the narrative of manufacturing. It's a consulting firm. That's the way I see it. But it has to be clearly delivered as that, not necessarily our depiction of what we see as manufacturing. I think he has Mr. Lloyd, you do have a responsibility to convey that clearly, but I think that's where this really ties into the town, because you can only imagine that wording as associated with what's going around within this whole sector of monuments. Everything has very strict compliances, and he's got to make that decision. The planning commission's got to make that decision. So it's a fine line, and we thank you for, coming here, because I see both ends of the spectrum, but I would want to help you as much as possible to get you through this to convey and continue on with your business.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks. All right. Yeah, and I think unlike some of the other items that come before us, we're not determining the value of this particular application. We're
Sure.
determining the decision about the application itself. So with that in mind, if someone would like to make a motion, if you could put up both of those alternatives on the screen for us. Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion.
I, Commissioner Trujillo, side with option number 1. I move to deny the appeal and uphold the planning director's administrative decision based on the findings of fact in the staff's report to the board's determination that the decision was not arbitrary, it was not conspicuous, capricious, or contrary to the intent and requirement of Title 18 of Monument Land Development Code.
We have a motion. How about a second?
I second,
Go ahead.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Ray, would you take roll, please?
Thank you, Chair Egley,
Yes.
Vice Chair Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Baumer, Commissioner Parr,
Yes.
Commissioner Hatch,
Yes.
and Commissioner Trujillo.
Yes.
Motion passes 6 in favor, none opposed.
Thank you. Sure.
To try and build something, because I've asked it to be an office. That was one of the requests on this early on, and I was not allowed to do that. So I don't know how to go forward. That's the discussions I thought I had with planning, but every time I was told, no, it doesn't meet that. If I just want it to be an office, it'll be an office. So I don't understand what I need to do that.
I'm sure we would be willing to have a final discussion. And yes, of course, we would. That is all.
But if yeah, I think that would probably be the direction that the commission would give to you, is to do that. Should you not find satisfaction with that, and I think there's other recourse that you do have, but that would be our direction
All right.
at this time.
I will reach out to their office. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look, could I ask you one question?
Yeah.
Why don't you just put an addition onto your house?
Oh, I thought about doing that, but I was trying to not have the flow broken up by having that middle section of my yard.
Staff
used.
would have to answer that, but it seems to me like if you put on 2 or 3 rooms onto your house and maybe a garage.
And that was something I had thought about doing. I was just trying to push it to the back of the lot so that we broke it up and could have a patio in the middle, but I understand. I do appreciate the suggestion though. Thank you
I have a
guys.
question.
Sure.
For the staff, do we have such a thing as a satellite office? So that they are still, he still has his legitimate title of his company, but he's a satellite office.
What I would recommend is if the applicant is willing to or interested in pursuing this application again, that they should contact our department. I would not want to evaluate all those options now. It took us several months to go through all of these options and vet through them. So I would recommend just connecting with our department.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our business for the Board of Adjustment. I'll go ahead and move to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.